And welcome back to the WCHE Morning Show. I'm Eric Climbera. Joining us on the phone to discuss the updated version of her book, Get a Financial Life, Personal Finance in Your 20s and 30s. We have New York Times bestselling personal finance author, Beth Kobliner. Beth, thank you for joining us this morning. How are you this morning?
I'm good, Eric. How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks again for coming on here. So lots to get to in your book here. And Beth, you just published the fifth and revised edition of this book for millennials and Gen Z. What inspired you to update Get a Financial Life for this new generation of graduates?
Right. Well, I've been writing about personal finance my whole adult life. And I think we are facing now, and it's no surprise to anyone, these are really tough times for young people. But I also think, and I'm happy to see, that, first of all, my advice has stood the test of time over the last 30 years. I've taught people how to get out of debt, how to save, how to learn to invest. And even though things are different and difficult, the lessons are very much the same with some tweaks in them to teach young people that there are many habits you can adopt now to get your finances in order. And it won't be easy, I'm not going to lie, but there are ways to kind of make sure you're on the right path.
And you mentioned definitely tough for this generation. I am in my 20s, and so I definitely see that as well. Now, Beth, a lot of young people leave college without basic financial skills. What are some of the biggest gaps that you're seeing today?
Right. I think, first of all, with the rise of social media, which can be great, you can learn a lot from social media, but you can also be swayed into investments that may not be appropriate, that sound great, that people are saying how much money they made, but are they really, and if they had such great tips, would they be out there just sharing it to every stranger in the world? So I think some of it is getting back to some basics. I think it's very tempting, and young people now are getting into more credit card debt than previous generations. And honestly, it's not their fault when you get a credit card and you have not a job yet. It can be very difficult to pay it off. So I would say sort of rule number one is don't spend more than you have. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. And it sounds so basic, but there are these deals out there now, like buy now, pay later deals, and credit cards with interest rates of 22% on average. It's never been that high. That is not normal. And you don't want to get into credit card debt. So avoiding credit card debt, one piece of advice, Eric, I don't know if you live at home with your parents. I don't know if you want to admit it, but honestly, that's no shame. I think that's a badge of courage, because living at home with parents right now is a smart thing to do if you just graduated from school and you need a breather and need time to save up some money to rent an apartment of your own. And if you have a job, sign up for the 401k. Now many companies will sign you up automatically, but still make sure you're getting the match. Companies are still out there saying if you put in $1, they'll put in 50 cents for $1 to match what you put in. That's an immediate 50% or 100% return on your money. There is nothing on social media that can guarantee you to get 50% or 100% return on your money.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, especially on the credit card debt, because we have seen, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but very high credit card debt amongst young people. Now, Beth, continuing to elaborate on that situation, what are some of the biggest financial mistakes you see people make into their 20s that follow them into their 30s? I know you touched on the credit card debt, but do you just want to elaborate more on that a little bit?
Sure. I think, look, we hear that the first-time home buyer right now, the average age is 40, which is probably terrifying to anyone who's in their 20s because 40 sounds so far away. In my day, the average first-time home buyer is 28 years old. So it's a different mindset to begin with, knowing that, wow, I may not buy a home until I'm in my early 40s, late 30s. So I think there's a bit of, and some economists have written about this sense of I'm giving up. I'm just going to, go for the high flyer, go for the crypto, go for gambling websites, go for prediction, sites. And that is a huge mistake. Most people who do those, particularly gambling and prediction sites, lose money. And you want to be smart about it. It sounds sort of so basic, but you want to save methodically. Look, I wrote this book 30 years ago originally, and people come over to me now in their 60s and 70s and said, you know what, back in the day when I was in my 20s, I didn't feel like I had enough money to save. I was living paycheck to paycheck. That's a common feeling for young people. It's not new. And they said, but I forced myself to put away, whether it was, $50 a month or even $10 a month. And now I have literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in my 401k at work that I never would have had otherwise. Just doing the basic things, opening an index fund. You can get one, and I don't get any kickbacks or paybacks from any companies. I'm an independent journalist. And if you open an account at Fidelity or Schwab or Vanguard, you can start with very small amounts. Many of those companies say you can open an index fund at any of those companies for as little as $1. Open an ETF, exchange traded fund, index fund. It might sound very overwhelming and complicated. In Get a Financial Life, my book, you learn the very basics and how simple it is, but you don't even need to read my book. You could just open an index fund, put in a small amount of money, and let it sit there and ride out the years and years and years you have for your financial future. If I could have every single person do something like that, it would be amazing. I think young people really need to they know it's difficult, they know it's hard, but there are steps they can take and habits they can build now that will really pay off for the future.
And I think the gambling aspect, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think every time you watch, whether it be a sports game, you're just watching regular TV, scrolling on social media, you get sucked in with that, and there's so much of that out there.
Right.
So a habit definitely not to get into for sure. Now, Beth, we have a few minutes left, and I really appreciate your time here. For our parents that are listening, how can they support a graduate, someone in their 20s and 30s, financially without enabling bad habits?
Right. I say if you can, let them live at home, but you can tell them, look, here are the rules. You do your laundry or, set up the guidelines in place. But having a grown, a child, son or daughter, anyone, move back home makes it much easier for them to start saving, and that would be a big gift to them. But obviously, you have to establish ground rules. I'd also say, studies and research shows that parents are helping young people with, a first home, helping them with the wedding costs. I would say that's wonderful if you can do it, but don't feel guilted into doing it. I think a lot of parents, people in their 50s and 60s and 40s, are feeling the pinch right now, too. So you shouldn't sacrifice your own grown-up finances, your 40, 50-year-old, 60-year-old finances, to sort of go out on a limb and because you want your child to have what I didn't have. I think that's kind of an important lesson that parents need to hear. But setting them up, letting them have a place to stay for a year or two, and encouraging them to do smart things, not getting into credit card debt, and starting to save in an index fund, index ETF, or IRA. I think that will go such a long way as a parent in terms of advice for their kid, and getting them a copy of Get a Financial Life for a graduation present.
And Beth, as we wrap up, that was going to be my closing question here. How can our listeners get a copy of this book and then follow your work as well?
Well, Get a Financial Life, Personal Finance in Your 20s and 30s, my book, is available now all over on every, Amazon and at every bookstore you can walk into. I've been doing this a really long time, and so I hope people check it out. I'm online, BethKobliner.com. And I appreciate this, Eric, and I hope it helped you. You sound like a pretty sharp guy, so I'm sure you're on top of it all. But, your generation has a lot to face, but I have so much faith in young people. I think you guys are more similar to the Depression generation in a way, and it may not sound optimistic, but I think your values are really going to pay off in the long term.
And Beth, I appreciate the kind words. I do have a copy of the book, so I'm really looking forward to continuing to read it here, and really appreciate your time this morning, and best of luck with the book.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. We appreciate it.